All right, welcome to the Good Fight. This is the TGF post-fight Xander Zayas, Jaron-Ennis wrap up. And joining me in a moment is going to be our friend Lucas Cattell. And if everything goes well, we're going to get Ryan Sangalia in here as well. Ryan is at the Barclays Center right now, trying to chase down some interviews. But he's gonna get us. He's gonna try and get us some folks on screen if possible. But in any case, he's gonna join us to kind of set the scene and give us his thoughts on what he saw. Waiting for Lukey to join us. I see we have Gold Print Sports and Media. Enjoyed the fight. I know Gail told us she was going to be joining us. Hopefully, we'll get some more come on board. Had some problems with the audio last week that I think we've corrected this time around. So hopefully, the production value on this one will be a little bit better, and we'll get through some of the technical issues. It'll be a little bit smoother this time around. But I am still waiting for Lukey to join. Ryan will be with us in a moment. He's got to wrap up a couple things from his seat at the Barclays Center. But we want to hear from you as well. Chime in the chat and tell us your thoughts. Tell us if you have questions for us. Let us know how we're doing in general at the Good Fight as well. We are trying our damnedest to give you the best fight coverage, the best boxing coverage we can, tell you all the best stories, give you some history, give you some current events, give you some fun stuff. But we are all about independent journalism, doing this without influence, doing this to the best of our abilities, kind of the old school way. And hoping to kind of be the standard moving forward. Gold Print Sports and Media. There's no excuse for any boxer that claims to be the best for Xander to do what he did. Yeah, Lukey and I were talking offline before we went live, and in our opinion, Xander looked a little too happy to lose that fight. It was a little strange, his reaction. Even Mannix made a comment, big smile on your face. And it's like, yeah, why? What's that all about? I mean, you don't want a 23-year-old kid in his first pay-per-view and big title fight to be crushed and never return by a result like this. But at the same time, that was pretty definitive. Xander looked good in moments, but just moments, briefly here and there. And he took a pretty good beating. And I don't know how you walk away from that and feel good about what your performance was. He even said he was happy with his performance, which, I don't know, kind of blows me away. We're all different. We all have different reactions to things like that. So, who's to say? Lukey is here joining us now. Lucas Cattell. Lukey, I was just mentioning how we talked about Xander, his reaction to the outcome, to his performance, and it just seemed kind of incongruous with what we saw out there. Tell us your thoughts.
It reminded me a lot of another kind of modern Puerto Rican fighter in Edgar Berlanga, who got criticism for celebrating sort of going 12 rounds with Canelo Alvarez. It's like, Xander, I think, showed some good elements in this fight. It was a very competitive fight at times. He possibly hurt Boots Ennis. And then, as we were, we're texting and watching along together, and then all of a sudden he gets stopped, right? And it was a little bizarre, kind of like the level of comfort with losing, I would say. And that was kind of, I guess it's unfair to grade everyone as a serious competitor, hardcore competitor. And he showed a lot of toughness in this. But I guess my default is I'm always the constant competitor. And it did kind of in a stakes of, I really feel like the loser of this fight is going to take a big step back. It really felt kind of odd. I'd equate it to like maybe not quite the same, but imagine if Paul Williams celebrated Sergio Martinez after their knockout, his knockout loss. It's not quite that degree, but that's where my mind went.
Yeah, it's you don't pop back up and do the routine that we sort of criticize. He's going around, you know, thanking the crowd, making the rounds. Uh, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you don't have to be all in your feelings, but like, how are you not more pissed off? How are you not more disappointed? And Gail commented here. She says people often smile and laugh when they're nervous. I think the smile was more about that rueful reality of losing. That could very well be. Um, it's tough to know what's going through his head right now. And the one thing I think that it is fair to give boxers grace after any loss, after any kind. I mean, and he took a beating. Uh, we're talking to guys who just got their heads beaten in moments after the event. I mean, you and I were talking about it, Lukey, that even Boots sounded a little bit off. So you can't expect him to be at his best, cognitively in that moment. So who's to say? But it didn't seem to line up with the result of the fight.
For sure. I think another thing that comes to my mind too is like the post fight interview. Like maybe that's something we don't need as much anymore. Like it's like two guys in a hard fight probably have concussions or like are a little not all there, and then we're gonna judge them based on being on in a hard fight. Like I think in a day or two we could be like, man, Xander had a lot of damage, and his reaction was just like trying to be responsible while going through a really because we talk about this. If we went through what Xander went through, it'd be like one of the most traumatic moments in our life. But we watch it for sport and just like expect these guys to be like the best versions of themselves after it.
Yeah.
So I think there also is undue criticism that goes there too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I wouldn't mind seeing the post-fight interview go away. I mean, there's some guys who pull it off well, and occasionally you get some real gold from those moments, but there are a lot of times where it's not great. And there are enough of these fighters that aren't exceptionally eloquent in the best of circumstances. It's an emotional moment. You're, you know, you're buzzed. There are enough reasons for not doing it, and let's catch up with you, as you said, in a couple of days when once the volume is turned down a little bit, and you've got your wits about you again. But tell us a little bit about what you saw technically, Lukey, as far as we saw Boots initially seem like he was kind of toying with Zayas, and then all of a sudden, I want to say it was third round, fourth round, maybe. Xander started showing some life, but it was pretty quickly. It's just we realized Boots knew that he didn't have to fear anything. There wasn't enough coming back at him that he could kind of pick his spots. But tell me what you saw in terms of the X's and O's.
Well, I mean, first off, I'm gonna downplay what I know. That's kind of the gimmick here. But then what I saw was I was just really taken aback at that Boots early on was not fearing anything Xander did. And a lot of the fight week story was how big Xander was and how willing he was to be in the pocket. He hurt him early on. I think the big takeaways are I didn't understand the mental toughness of Xander. Xander, I thought if he got hit with a shot, that it could change a fight, and he might. I guess we could talk about that. He got hit with a punch in the first round, and he looked like he was making a decision if he wanted to be there or not, and
Yeah.
he made a decision to stay in the fight. And I think that was a telling moment in the fight because it really looked like that was the first time he had ever been punched at a high level in a fight, and he made a big decision. I think the other thing is like Boots gets away with things through coordination and just being kind of a hard hitting fighter who's able to do things. And this was one of the first fights where you see him pay for those things. In the third round, I think he was maybe a little bit arrogant. I do think there's a flaw with Ennis where he thinks that he's the exception to every rule. So,
Oh, here we go. Sorry, I'll put you on pause for just a moment, Lukey. We'll come back to that. Ryan Sangalia is joining us from Barclays Center.
That's
Party.
me.
It's a party. What's going on, Ryan?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. First off, this is nuts. I really feel like a freelancer in 2026, having to download the Substack app. That's something I didn't know how to do. So yeah, no, I'm talking. Looks like Jason and Lukey over here. Yeah, I'm at the Barclays Center, and yeah, I think you saw exactly what I saw. Uh, Jaron-Ennis, new unified junior middleweight champion.
Yeah, so we were just discussing kind of Zayas's reaction and and how odd it was, and how it seemed like Boots was kind of toying with him, at least for a good portion of the fight, and it was just kind of a matter of time before it came down to it. How did you see it playing out?
Yeah, exactly the way you described it. Jaron-Ennis, I figured, there were the odds were what they were for a reason. This is Jaron-Ennis was a solid favorite throughout the fight and the build-up. But I did not expect Xander Zayas to come out and be aggressive the way he did. That's called being 23 years old. You look in the mirror, you see how big and muscle you are, and oh, look at this guy. He just moved up a weight. I'm gonna run him over.
He's got the
He's only
frosted
moving
tips
up a weight.
too.
Huh?
He's got the frosted tips too. He's feeling himself.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that's about. I can't relate. No, I'm lying.
Neither
I had the
none
frosted
of us
tips when I
can.
was 18 years old. I did have the red frosted tips like every other Asian teenager in the mid 2000s. So I'm lying. Didn't last long, but in hindsight that makes sense. He fought like a 23-year-old, um, and that's the thing when they say. You come you come calling the devil, sometimes he picks up the phone, and that's what happened.
Yeah, we're getting some comments in the chat as well. Gold Print Sports and Media says, I think it was more of him being at the top of the food chain, and if he doesn't take on the best, he's a duck. Yeah, and I don't. I mean, I think looking at this fight, it seems pretty clear that Zayas wasn't ready for it yet. But I don't know that anybody knew that Boots was ready. As many fights as he's had under his belt, he hasn't fought many guys at Zayas' level. Hasn't been when he has been challenged. Yes, he's been challenged by guys that most people wouldn't expect he would be challenged by.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's what made this fight interesting because Ennis did not get those big fights that he was looking for at 147. Had to move up to 154, and obviously, I feel that the thinking was that, oh, we're both with the zone, we can make that Virgil Ortiz fight really easily, and that didn't come. What they were not imagining, I guess, was that he would have this massive falling out with Oscar De La Hoya, and sit out a significant chunk of his prime. So Xander Zayas, no, I don't think anyone really thought he was ready. I don't care. Like, you have two belts. You pick up two vacant belts. You could put on Superman's cape. Doesn't mean you could jump out a window and fly. So that's sort of what Xander Zayas was trying to do. and he jumped way up in competition tonight in a way that was much more than what Ennis was jumping up, because I remarked on Twitter, that's the way that Jaron Ennis looked sparring on a Tuesday afternoon at Philly's Next Champ Gym, in Philadelphia. Um, Jaron Ennis does that every day. That's just who he is. So I was not so concerned about Ennis's preparedness. What I was concerned about was that he seemed to be kind of buying into that heel role a little bit more than I would have wanted him to, because Ennis, I don't think he had ever fought in front of a crowd this loud before. Obviously, in Philadelphia, at the Licoris Center, he's drawing big crowds, but this was a loud crowd, and I was wondering if he was going to fight out of character. Um, but luckily for Ennis, even when he fights out of character, um, that's still the way he fights, because he likes to bang. And his game plan was to open up a can of whoop ass and see what happens.
So tell us a little more about kind of the scene there, and anything that, Lukey and I are just sort of in our living rooms, doing our thing here, seeing what we can see, that what everybody else can see on the zone broadcast. Was there anything you picked up on there at Barclays that the rest of us didn't see, or like you mentioned, the kind of the crowd noise? What can you tell us that maybe we couldn't have picked up on the broadcast?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I picked up on was that, holy crap, man, Xander Zayas is popular in New York. Like, really, and I've seen this before, like where a Puerto Rican fighter who has some like cachet behind him will show up, and you'll get some fans. But Top Rank really put in their groundwork on those theater shows that they were doing on ESPN, where Xander Zayas was always on the cards, squashing guys that were on a come up. Xander Zayas, I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like, you couldn't have told me that Miguel Cotto and Felix Trinidad weren't walking through that, to the ring
Really?
earlier tonight. It was wild. And what else was interesting is how fast the crowd had turned. Because that meme where it's like, from The Simpsons, they're booing Mr. Burns, and they're saying boo Earns. It really did turn into boo Oots, by the end of the night. So I actually I was impressed by how quickly the crowd was able to jump the bandwagon over to Jaron Ennis. They're like, you know what, Philadelphia ain't that far. It's not like.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Have you seen that or heard that before? Did that surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, the switch up was a little crazy. I mean, like, hey, you came in here booing the guy. Maybe I was missing the T. Maybe they really were saying boots the whole time, but with my media bias, I was like, I'm gonna run with that. They're booing the shit out of him. So no, I had never seen anything like that. Another thing was that, holy crap, like how, I don't know if it's just that Ennis is moving up from 40, because Ennis is a big guy too. Like, when he was killing himself to make 47, but he looked really small compared to Zayas, which is why Zayas was able to last as long as he did, I think. Because you can't just be taking punches like that. That's not good for your long-term health. But maybe Zayas, it really could benefit from moving up to 160, because he looked massive. That's when I had seen him last, because I had seen him when he was like 140, 147 pounds, and he didn't look that's crazy, but he filled out so much. Um, I think he could actually benefit from moving up to 160. Uh, Other than that, I think that Jaron Ennis, he capitalized on this moment, similar, not as much more explosively, but in a similar way to Shakur Stevenson, how he capitalized on a Teofimo Lopez fight. Teofimo Lopez was the draw in that fight, and they're not fighting in a big pay-per-view in a big arena without Teofimo Lopez, but it was Ennis who really captured the moment. I think that's what really stood out to me.
So let me ask you real quick. You kind of laid it out for Zayas and how it went for him. And you mentioned that Ennis was kind of a walk in the park for him a little bit. But Lukey and I were talking about this before we hopped on. How does he look the way he fought tonight, how does he look against Virgil Ortiz in a fight against Virgil? The way he fought tonight, because we kind of, Lukey and I both felt a little bit like either he left something in the tank or he wasn't all there. He didn't, as much as he wound up breaking down Zayas in the end. This was not an overwhelming performance.
I mean, I'll tell you what, it was overwhelming in my opinion
Okay.
because I never seen a guy like. In fact, I think I put it on Twitter. I said this wasn't exactly a Mayweather Gotti situation. It was like a Gotti De La Hoya situation, where yeah, one guy's doing the beating up for the most part, but the other guy's still landing a couple shots. And so it's a little bit kind of interesting, but here's this is you guys your suspicions, your doubts regarding a Virgil Ortiz fight are well founded, because that was what I was thinking. I was like, Jaron Ennis fought the way Jaron Ennis fights. This is the way Boots fights. Boots is like a Philadelphia, like, I'm giving away my story for tomorrow, so you guys, you may not have to read it tomorrow because I'm saying it right
Preview.
now,
It's
but
just
read
a
it too.
preview.
Actually, no, read it also, but I'm gonna say it to you so you can play this back too for the audible. But basically, I feel like Jaron Ennis is like a Meldrick Taylor kind of fighter in that he's got this overwhelming. He's a flashy Philadelphia fighter who has this overwhelming athleticism that you would imagine, if his temperament was such, could go out there and just flurry, box, break a guy down that way, and then later in a fight, go and take him. But he can't resist a good brawl,
Okay.
and that's like really cool if you're fighting Xander Zayas, and he's your hand speed is like 6 times what his is, and he stays right in front of you. But Virgil Ortiz is a whole different story. Virgil Ortiz is a guy that, all right, you can get, he got buzzed a little bit in the third round against Xander Zayas, and then came back. You can't get away with that with Virgil Ortiz because you make a mistake, that's your ass.
Yeah. Lukey, anything you want to ask Ryan while he's still with us?
I'm not dying. I'm not like, what are you talking about? Any last words? Say them before it's too late. You got to turn that microphone on, bro.
Oh, Lukey, we aren't hearing you right now. Still out.
We're gonna see me dancing.
Hop in once you're ready. Once you're back online, we'll let you ask. Oh, there goes. Okay, Lukey's out. Yeah, so I mean, okay, so Gail is talking about how Eddie Hearn at the post fight presser talked about unification as the goal for Ennis. Supposedly Eddie's on board. He mentions Josh Kelly and Fundora. Off the top of your head, how do those two fights look to you?
You know what that reminded me of? Because I covered Manny Pacquiao on the way up. Well, actually, no, when Pacquiao was on the top, and after after the fight, the press conference, Bob Arum would name like 3 guys that Pacquiao was gonna fight next. One of them was like on like gold lettering, hand delivered to you by like the Queen of England. And then the other 2 names were like written on like a cocktail napkin that someone coughed into. So you knew who he was really fighting, you know. He would be like, yeah, we're gonna fight Marquez maybe, but it could be Zab Judah or Mike Jones. And you're like, I think it's gonna be Marquez actually. So yeah, like he mentioned Josh Kelly, and then he's like, yeah, Sebastian Fundora is a guy too. I don't think the Virgil Ortiz fight is next. I think Josh Kelly makes a lot more sense, just in terms of it's a lot easier to make. I don't think Josh Kelly presents a whole lot of threat, but I think he's a little bit more disciplined than Xander Zayas. He's not as big, he's not as strong, but he's more disciplined than Xander Zayas. So that's really what it comes down to. I'm
He's,
thinking about the coughing and a napkin thing. I remember someone saying that to me.
well, it's Kelly's a name. He's got a bit of a pedigree, but I think
He's got a bit of a belt, and that's what really matters.
there you go. But he also, it's probably winds up being the same result, maybe for different reasons, but same result. It kind of builds up Boots. Builds you some momentum towards the Virgil fight.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Is like, Jaron Ennis has to find a way to stay busy until Virgil Ortiz can figure out what's going on with him and Oscar, and then like come to an agreement about how to make this. Because I think that there's nothing standing in the way other than that whole promotional situation that has to be figured out, and that's what unfortunately that's the reality of professional boxing. So that's really what it comes down to. Eddie Hearn has that American star that he's been looking to make in since he came over with the zone and was like always had the UK on lock, him and Frank Warren obviously, but he struggled to get that breakthrough star. I know that he first came on with Danny Jacobs in America. He was with Shakur for a bit, but that was that was a tough thing to figure out. And obviously Shakur's kind of doing his own thing now, even though he's worked at times with Eddie Hearn. But this is Eddie Hearn's crowning moment in America. I feel, and if the zone expansion is going to work, it has to be with a big American star. Now the issue is going to be getting the right guys in front of Ennis, and also Ennis finding a way to be a little bit more disciplined, because you can't just go out there and bang out with someone like Virgil Ortiz. That's insane, and yeah. No, I just want to say hi to Lily. Lily, you were supposed to be here. I wanted to see you, but glad to see you in the chat.
Yeah, we missed you, Lily. Lily's not feeling great, so she's in the chat. She's not on the stream, but she also mentions Virgil's being hella mean on Twitter. You're gonna have to tell us exactly what he's saying, or sort of where he's at on that. But I mean, honestly, if I was Virgil, I'd probably be going that route too. Like you said, Ryan, if you're fighting at that distance, I mean, Boots started off. He kept his distance, and you could tell he was trying to take measure of Zayas. But like, you're fighting Virgil at that distance for the last 4 or 5 rounds that Boots fought Zayas, and you're fighting with your hands down the way he did. It's not gonna go the same way it did tonight.
Well, that's what I found interesting. You guys were talking about, like, pretend, was he just not taking Zayas seriously? Was he leaving something in the tank? Um, no, I think that's just how Ennis fights. Like I've seen Ennis since the amateurs. I remember him like beating the crap out of people when he just won the National Golden Gloves, and was like, guys that were like 176 and he was 141. So those guys were probably walking around on like 180 something. So like that's just how he fights. I don't think I wonder if it's sort of like um, if you try, remember like when they were trying to make Prince Nassim Ahmed into a boxer, and like having him stop doing all that wacky stuff, and that sort of took away who he was.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's what happens if you try to get Boots to stick to a disciplined game plan. I think he's just going to be who he is, because people say, oh, he got caught a little bit too much. He was losing focus. This is the same Boots Ennis I've seen his whole career.
Yeah.
I remember there was some early fights that people don't remember because they weren't televised, that Ennis had some troubles when he first turned professional. So Ennis is, obviously a superior athlete to most people, but when you get hit like that in these fights, um, you know, it's like Melchick Taylor. Like I was talking about Melchick Taylor. Taylor people say, "Oh, he was shot in one night." No, he wasn't, because he came back and won a championship like the next year. But then his style caught up with him. He moved up again for Terry Norris, someone who was way bigger than him, and he took a beating. And then he wound up taking beatings from guys he shouldn't have gotten beat by. No disrespect to my friend Darren Mashinsky, obviously, but he was getting beat by guys that you wouldn't have thought that he was, would get beat by. So Boots has to understand. Yeah, it's great that you have this, you're the quickest draw in the West. You know what I mean? But if you keep pulling that gun out, out that OK Corral, it's eventually someone's a quicker draw, and like you're gonna get caught. So yeah, I hope that I really hope that that fight does get made. It probably won't be next, but I mean, I could see sometime next year. It would be a shame. It would really be a shame if Boots didn't fight again this year. But it's like they said, those marinating things. What do they call it? Marinating? You got to get all those easy options out of the way.
Right,
Make
right.
that money.
That's what you said in your last story. Um,
It's cool to just say whatever's on your mind, right?
it's great, right? It's a hell of a lot easier than writing.
Yeah, like you just write it down and then you don't care because you're not employable anyways.
Yeah. So we, so we got a few comments here. Gold Sprint Sports and Media says, in my opinion, he's a warrior. That fight should have been stopped sooner. I think he's talking about Xander. Lily said that Virgil was calling Xander a quitter. That seems a little excessive. I mean, Lukey said earlier, I think before you joined us, Ryan, that when he got dropped in the first round, he had that funny look on his face, and it seemed like he just kind of made a decision, like he'd never really taken a shot like that before, and it was like, all right, if this is what this is, then I'm either moving forward or I'm done. And he moved forward. So and he took a beating. He really did. And he did last a while.
He was like, "Whoa, they could do that to me? Like, what the hell was that?
Right?
Did someone get the license plate on that guy?"
So we got another.
No,
we have someone fan. It's just fan says that was a great fight. Anthony Cox. That was it. That was all we got. Anthony Cox, our one of our contributors, fantastic contributor from Australia, says he agrees with Ryan. Ennis is what he is, super athletic but flawed. I like Ortiz Jr. to beat him in a 6-round shootout. I hate to. It's an easy.
Hopefully, it's scheduled for longer than that.
Yeah, right.
They get more money.
Right. I'm pretty sure what Anthony was saying was that's when he goes down. But so it's it's too easy to kind of compare Boots to Roy Jones Jr. But in a similar, they're not the same fighters, but in the same fashion that there's a lot of reflexes.
Roy was much more risk averse. Roy was not standing in front of guys and just banging out. That wasn't Roy's style. Roy could box a little bit, and then he'll try to take you out early, and then if he sees that you can take it, he'll settle in and box a little bit. And Roy was not nearly, I feel, the killer that Ennis is, because, and this is not a knock on Roy. Roy was an entertainer. He'd go out there and like he carried Glenn Kelly, put on a little bit of a show, knock a guy out and doing some funny stuff, Ennis is like, I'm gonna try and like take your head off with every punch, that kind of guy.
It's funny you say that, because Roy was one of those guys that I never missed a fight back in the day. He struck me as like, I thought of him as sort of a lighter Tyson. I just thought maybe it was just sort of a darker version. Like Tyson would take you out, and he didn't care when, and if anything, he would just like on you like a tiger. Roy seemed to like maybe a killer. Like, you said Boots is a killer. Maybe he's more like an assassin. Maybe he's more like a ninja. But like, I just felt like there was sort of an evil streak there. Like he knew he was going to get you. It was just a matter of when he decided he was going to get you. And it was kind of like that almost made it like scarier.
Yeah, he was definitely throwing some ninja stars at Xander Zayas today. Yeah, he went Ginsu style. No, I mean, Roy. I wouldn't say he was like a Ty. In my opinion, I wouldn't say he's like a Tyson. But I'll tell you what, the best version of Boots Ennis would be like a Ray Leonard, because Ray was a guy who he would get on your ass if you were hurt, and but he wouldn't do it prematurely, and he wouldn't give you free shots at him. But once he got you hurt and you were tired, like what we did with
blood
Tommy
water.
Hearns, yeah, like so. I mean, Boots is out there taking chances in a way that I mean, I enjoy it because I'm not getting punched in the face, but for someone who is looking at how much money they can make over the next few years, probably is like, yeah, I wish you wouldn't do that as much. But you know what, that's just that Philadelphia style. Like when I train some boxers, I know whenever we go down to Philly, we're gonna have to fight our way in the door, and then we have to fight our way out the door. Because if we leave before 6 rounds and we don't fight like we're trying to kill each other, they're gonna call us a bitch, and then we're gonna wear that on the ride back up 95. But I actually I just think that's just who Boots is. Like you can't change a player's game in the ninth inning. So that's just this is who it is. This is who he is, and he's gonna win being who he is, or he's gonna lose who he is.
All right, so Ryan, you're still with us, but
Not terminal.
are you on? You're not terminal. Are you on your way out?
Why, you kicking me out, bro?
Oh man, you're
What did
here
I do?
as long as you want to be. You just look
You're
like
like,
you look like you got like 1 foot out the Barclays. So I'm trying to figure out.
you talk my ear off like a regular Monday night, just talking about whatever the fuck. But now we got something to talk about. You try to kick me out.
Now when you're ready to say something, when you get a
Oh,
squeeze a
I'm gonna
moment.
go. All right. Bye.
Well, we got Lukey back. Lukey, we lost you at a critical moment. Did you have anything else? First of all, let's make sure your audio is working.
Just yell into your phone. Maybe you have to yell. Go.
Can you put your put your question in the chat if you got anything to ask Ryan? I want you guys are more technically steeped than I am. So let's see. Okay, third
If
round.
that's the case, then we're screwed, man. Because I
All
don't
right.
know what I'm doing. I'm
So-
an old fogey, bro.
So Ryan, Lukey asks, third round. Thoughts on the third round?
Thoughts on the third round. I thought that was round of the year. I put that on Twitter. I said that was best round of the year. In my opinion, I just that's the thing when you got like I'm gonna guess like maybe at least 10 pounds Zayas had on Boots. Yeah, you get caught in between those shots. Yeah, but that was actually the worst thing that could have happened to Zayas, because it
Yeah.
started to work and he hurt hurt Boots, and then I'm gonna go get him now. And like, bro, so you're gonna immediately abandon everything that was working for you. That's awesome. Like by the end of the round, actually, I thought Ennis had hurt Zayas again. So it was like you know, that's what happened basically. It was Zayas had a little bit of success, and like, hey, that's awesome. You know what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna stop doing everything that worked.
It was I mentioned to Lukey the other day, he liked the term false flag. It was kind of a false flag for Zayas. He responded, and he shouldn't have. He should have kept boxing. He should have stayed more cautious. But 23 years old, first time against a guy like that who, you're going to pay for it if you do that.
Someone says I have my backpack on. Yeah, because I don't want it to. They're like cleaning up, and I don't want to be that guy. You know
that's
what I
what I meant. I didn't know if they were throwing you out. Like, I don't want to.
Listen. I respect union labor. All right, and I understand what that's like. They're not allowed to move certain things. There's all sorts of labor contracts, so I respect them.
They might just like come with a broom though and just start sweeping you out the door.
Listen, it's not May Day. All right, they're not doing that.
All right. So Lily asked, and you mentioned earlier, like it was pretty loud in there. Lily asked how the atmosphere was.
Atmosphere was great. This was it's crazy because Barclays Center has been so important to boxing over the last decade or so, and unfortunately, I feel like what was it? Actually, no, I'm lying. There was the Danny Garcia fight was here. I think that was earlier this year or something like that, or late last year. But then prior to that, they hadn't done a show since I think Tank versus Roach, and which was a big show, a big event. And then to just not see boxing here for a long time was kind of unsettling. But Barclays is Barclays. I was at the first show here when they opened it up, and this it's a very different atmosphere than going to the Garden. Um, and I'm not just saying that because I know where the parking is at the Garden, and I booked parking, and I got to walk a mile back to my car. So I might as well have just taken the train in, and I mean, I don't know. But yeah, no, Xander Zayas, the crowd was so hot for Xander Zayas, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to build him back, obviously, but Miguel Cotto had a loss, a pretty traumatic loss, a way worse loss to come back from, which was the Antonio Margarito fight. And he was still able to be a star. So I think that this should be really encouraging. And they can always just say, well, you know what? It was killing him to make 154. He's really at 160. Um, Top Rank is smarter than me. That's they're gonna figure something out to spin this, and Xander Zayas will be he'll be back. But with the way that the crowd embraced him, I was like, holy crap! Like I wasn't around for Tito Trinidad in person. He was my favorite fighter growing up. But this is what I imagine. It was like with Tito Trinidad fighting.
Yeah, no, I mean, from what I could see and what I could tell, it was a good environment, and Top Rank knows what they're doing. They're going to build Zayas back. He's young enough, and I actually think his corner made the right move, throwing the towel in. Credit to Boots. It wasn't a perfect performance, but he did what he needed to do. And on to the next. Excuse me. Lukey, I'm going to try. You want to call me? I'm going to try and get your audio on here. We'll see if we can work this thing out.
Is that a Waylon Jennings shirt?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Beautiful.
Maybe you were just miming. You were messing with us.
No, that's
no, I was reaching for a pistol, so.
There you go.
I wish I was joking.
So aggressive. I promise I'm not trying to run you off, but you just look like you're. I feel that broom coming, Ryan. Any final thoughts? Anything more you got on your mind after witnessing all this?
Yeah, that fight was awesome. Back to you in the studio. No, I mean it was it was final thoughts, honestly. Oh, another one. One thing that, and again, I'm giving away my whole column here, so I hope you guys, if you guys missed the thing, don't worry. I'll be saying the exact same things tomorrow.
It's just a teaser.
Yeah. But the other thing I was thinking is like Emiliano Vargas' fight with Bryce Mills. Same issue that Bryce Mills and Xander Zayas had. They were so young, I'm not going to say immature, like as a pejorative, but they were so relatively inexperienced at the top level that when they got hurt, same issue. They didn't know how to hold. And people, he's a holder. Emmanuel Stewart said it best. He said, if you get hurt, grab on for dear life, even if you have to drag the guy to the floor with you. Just hold, right? And obviously hold smart. Like don't grab her on the waist and let the guy punch you in the face. But that was another thing. It was just when we're talking about did the fight happen too soon for Xander Zayas? Maybe there was never going to be a good time for him to beat. Maybe this is never going to be a good time for him to beat him. But I'll say this much. Xander Zayas could have won tonight.
I think so.
The problem is that it would have only been if he fought someone else. So that's sort of that was sort of his issue.
There was just one small detail that needed
Yeah,
work.
there was that poster where they had the other guy on it. But you're really putting me in with that guy, No, but Xander Zayas is a warrior, and I like I said in the story, we have to commend guys for taking these chances because he could have just been out there and fighting these missed mandatories, and the WBO and then whoever would have put whoever in front of him, and he could have racked up like 7 defenses in a row, fought no one, and sold out the theater at Madison Square Garden for the next 3 years, but he decided not to do that, and in defeat, Xander Zayas is a bigger champion than he was in any victory before.
Yeah, and I mean where we're at now in boxing and social media and all that, like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're gonna hear it from somebody, and probably everybody. I mean, it's just people want to complain about this stuff. And bottom line was Zayas gave boxing fans the fight, maybe not the fight they wanted, but he gave them the best fight that he could have given them. And
Yeah.
so he deserves credit for that.
Exactly, guys.
I promise I'm not trying to
You listen. You know what? It's fine.
bury
Listen,
you.
Jason. Jason,
I'm
I
not
can take a
trying to bury
hint.
you.
I can take
Just
a
look,
hint. All right.
you look like you're on your way out.
Listen.
It's throwing me
Lucy's been
off.
done with me for the last like 7 minutes, but Jason,
No,
I
I'm
expected
like
more
a
from you.
statue.
Jason, I expected more from you, but you know what? I'm a big boy. I can take it.
Well, Nate, all right, look, you gotta drive home ahead of you. If we're still going 3 hours from now, you go ahead, hop on at 4 a.m. Rejoin us. You are welcome to come back.
Yeah, listen. If you're still talking at 4 a.m., we're gonna talk about the Juan Mita Lopez fight. All right, that's a date. All right.
All right, I'm down with it. I'm down. All
All
right,
right, gentlemen.
thank you, Ryan. Appreciate everything from you. We'll talk
All
to you
right,
soon.
signing off from Brooklyn.
Safe
Let's
getting
get
home.
it. How do I do this thing here?
I got you.
You got me. Kick me off now.
I got you. All right. Ryan Sangalia live from the Barclays Center. That was great. Lukey's back on. Let me hear you, Lukey.
Yeah, I had technical issues for all of Ryan's segment. That was great.
That's all right. At least it was him, and it wasn't me out here floating on my own, just people looking at my head yakking. Well, let's go back and let's walk through the televised card. Let's start with Whitaker's win, TKO 2 over Richard Rivera. You mentioned, you thought you weren't super impressed by either he or Vargas, but we'll get to Vargas in a moment.
I mean, I'll just talk about it, right? With Whitaker, I hold him to a high standard. And it's like with Whitaker, you're going to get this corny persona, at least to me, middle-aged man. So he's coming out with the rapper. He does like the finger gun and he's doing this whole show thing. And it kind of rubs me the wrong way after I saw him in the first Liam Cameron fight where he showed mental fragility. So it's like when someone has this showboat nature and then you see a little bit of weakness, you can't unsee that. So in this fight, we got to see more of the good with Whitaker than the bad, where Richie Rivera is a guy that most people know from the Badu Jack fight, had a competitive fight with Badu Jack. Some people felt he won. Huge hand speed difference. When Whitaker is on, he looks sensational. He was one of the best Olympians in 2020. He beat Iman Kitov in the 2020 Olympics. He's a sensational fighter. The skills aren't the issue. It's more so, can you get away with things that, like, what do we call it? The traditions of boxing have told us not to do. Having your hands too low. Can you get away with that? Can you get away with kind of showboating to a certain extent and kind of teasing the boxing gods? And in this fight, he did. He drops the guy at the end of the first round, cuffing right hand, catches him at the temple, kind of the back of the head, goes down, catches him with a left hook. And then the referee kind of prematurely stops it, which I think in this fight it was good, right? Because it's like Rivera took a second to realize the fight was over. It was a little discouraging, but I think that's the good call. But it also is like, it's a pay-per-view card. This is an introduction to some fighters, and you don't want people to have this shucks feeling, because Whitaker, probably with Moses Atuma is the most interesting British fighter. I'd say it's him, Lauren Price, and Atuma are the most interesting fighters.
Yeah.
And it's like this was a big moment for him to kind of stand out. And I think he did what was asked of him because I thought this fight was going 10, to be honest with you. So he knocked out this park with my expectation of him. I'm old school. I don't love like all the bull crap that's going to get you the engagement on social media that he does. I think it puts him in a position where when he has a hard fight with a David Benavidez, it just is easier to kind of have mental fragility.
Well, I always go back to the Jim Brown thing. Brown got criticized for not getting up fast enough after a tackle. He'd always slow limping back or kind of shuffling back to the huddle. And somebody asked him about it one time, and he's like, "No," he's like, I do the same thing because if I am hurt, I don't want him to know." And kind of the reverse version of that is like you said with Whitaker. We've seen it with other guys too. You even mentioned there's a little bit of boots tonight. The guys who they want to perform, they want to put on a show, they want to showboat a little bit. The moment kind of the worm turns a little bit or they get into a little bit of trouble, all that goes away. And man, if I'm on the other side of that, if I'm looking for my opening or if I just want to be heartened a little bit by something that gives me a little more confidence, a little more courage, and I see a guy all of a sudden like the veil drops, and it's like, oh man, this guy's he's not now he wants to take it seriously. Oh, I must be doing something right, and so I think that's part of it. And you had mentioned and think a lot of other people had mentioned Rivera. A lot of people thought he was gonna give Whitaker trouble, so that second round knockout, that looks regardless. That looks good regardless. But going to Vargas, TKO for Bryce Mills. You and I talked a little bit about this going into it this week. Not a whole lot in front of Vargas, and you thought he actually didn't look great tonight, even though you get the knockout in 4 rounds.
I mean, I grade hard on a curve, right? And I think Bryce Mills is someone that I know and he's better than people expect, right? I think the frustration was Vargas is getting better with each fight, right? So it's like he's really improving. He's getting a lot better. And he was figuring it out in this fight. He caught him, he drops and just for those that didn't see the fight, there was a knockdown. It was kind of a weird knockdown. Then he catches him flush, sends him to the canvas. And then the stoppage was just horrible. Bryce Mills was in the middle of punching back, and the referee stops the fight. Yes, he was dazed, but it was probably going to lead to another sensational knockdown or even a knockout for Vargas. And Vargas, to me, I think that the thing that's tough for me is he's been advertised as a Keyshawn Davis, Shakur Stevenson level prospect, and I just don't quite see that. But I see a fighter who's constantly improving and very good, but I see everything but like the Keyshawn Davis, and I keep going back to Keyshawn because he's like one of those polished fighters. A Ben Whitaker, he doesn't quite have that, but he has the marketability. And we all know that if you position fighters and stuff, you can get them in good spots, but eventually you have to run free. And tonight I thought was a big step forward for him because Bryce Mills is a guy who's beat incredible guys, and you have to be able to win. But I felt like he had moments in this fight. He fought mostly as a southpaw, right? Which was kind of like, what are you doing? And Mills roughed him up at moments. And it was like one of the first growing pains fights. And then that stoppage pretty early in the fight, for me, it just kind of it felt like the fight was going to show so much about the character, the technique, all these different things. And it just happened so quickly that we didn't get a full read, and it left a little bit of dissatisfaction with me.
Yeah. Well, moving on to Jahai Tucker and his majority decision, 10-round decision over Yuri Cedeno. You wrote a really great story on Jahai earlier this week. You mentioned to me that you thought he looked really good in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, to me, well, but like, I guess it's more like mentality. Maybe as I get older, I'm more mentality guy. I like the technique, but Jahai, You know, he enters the ring and he doesn't have a robe on. He's just walking with his shirt off. And you look and it's like family members. And you look at Cedeno and there's like a level of arrogance. I'm more talented. I'm the Olympian. He's kind of giggling all fight week. He's giggling in the corner. And Cedeno, I think, really thought he was going to punch him and the fight would be easy. And when the fight didn't become easy, you saw mental toughness Jahai Tucker had, and Cedeno, I thought, showed a lot of mental fragility and immaturity. He looked like he simply wasn't having fun when the fight wasn't going his way. And I thought that this is another credit. What was his record in that story? 77% for his strength of schedule. And this is another
Yeah.
undefeated fighter, 2020 Olympian. These are the type of guys people avoid, right? And he already has a loss on his record. And you have a kid who's fighting someone who's supposedly like a guy that people wouldn't fight. And he's kind of punking him. He's beating him up. And he's never getting credit for these performances. So for me, I thought Jahai was outstanding because it's like everyone wants an 80s fighter, but here's an 80s fighter right in your face. This is like a Matthew Saeed Muhammad type action fighter, one of these old school guys that's going for glory, but people just simply aren't watching him just yet. And that's why I was drawn to the performance.
Well, and he's, Vargas, famous father, Whitaker, very, very flashy. He's coming from Britain, as you said, he's one of the more popular fighters there. It really takes a hook nowadays. Whether it helps to be an Olympian, it helps to have all the tools. But we saw Ryan Garcia become Ryan Garcia before he was really proved to be much of anything. That's how fighters get made nowadays. And so Jahai Tucker, he's interesting. He can fight. How many followers does he have on Twitter? And I don't say that. I don't. I'm being sarcastic. But the idea stands. I mean, nowadays the attention comes first. You're putting the cart before the horse, and it's one of the big problems with boxing, in my opinion, today. But hopefully, we can get to a place where somebody like Tucker, people get a chance to see him, get a chance to appreciate him, and you start building respect. Like by now, as you said, he's already beaten some guys and performed well against them, where he should be getting more credit than or more attention than he's gotten to this point.
I think a good example is he beat Troy Williamson on a card I covered last year. Williamson went on to beat Callum Simpson, who's a heavily promoted British fighter, and they're going on to have a rematch that's consequential in the UK. But Tucker's win was on an undercard, and it's relatively obscure to most fight fans in America.
Yeah, agreed. So we've got Eric Raskin, who may be joining us, but it's going to be about 20 minutes. So it's kind of up to you and me to hold down the fort, and then also whoever's joining us, if they want to stick around long enough. But I know, Lukey, you're probably as game as I am to keep doing this. Someone had asked a moment before if we were going to be at Abdullah Mason. I was accredited, and I had some tentative plans to try to go. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I would love to be there because Cleveland is sort of an underrated town, and I really want to see how the city kind of responds to Mason and see that environment. It's been a long, long time since there was a really big fight. And this isn't a really big fight, but it's been a long time since there was a big fight in Cleveland, a notable fight. And I'd love to be there for it. Don't know if I can make it, but if I do, we'll do this, and I'll probably, Luke, you'll be running point guard, and I'll be the Ryan Sangalia in that case. But either way, we will probably do another one of these. We're still waiting to see kind of what the response is, and we're also getting our feet under us as far as all the technical stuff. So I think it's going pretty well tonight. And so there's a very good chance that we'll go ahead and run this back next week. Let's see. I'm just going to look through the chat here a little bit and see what else. See if we can answer some people if they've got some questions. Tell us in the chat. You guys mentioned that Boots finally came out for the post-fight presser. Let us know if he said anything interesting, kind of what his response seemed to be. As Lukey and I were mentioning before, moments after getting your head knocked around is not always the best time to talk to somebody. So hopefully he had a little bit of time to clear the cobwebs, and maybe he had something interesting to tell us. But yeah, let us know in the chat if there was something more there.
Hey, Boots, what's your favorite Roman philosophy? Like,
No.
ask him that right after the fight.
No.
What's
your favorite backpack? Hello Kitty or Thomas the Tank?
I think it's Louis Vuitton. I think he's a Louis Vuitton guy. Let us know if he goes to the post-fight press.
We were talking about backpacks. Tell him your theory.
Well, I Fan in the chat. I think Fan gave it to me, or it was Man K Crazy on my YouTube channel, came up with the theory that he's taking people to school. So he's wearing it in the backpack as a metaphor for he's taking people to school. I hope he wears the backpack. It would be kind of cool if he puts the belts in the backpack. He's got the belts in the pack because it's a good device to carry things. I would be a fan of that, but I think that's a developing story that people are underrating. The Boots backpack and also the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air sideways hat. And who also is a Philly guy. If you think about it,
yeah.
Will Smith, Philly guy. Maybe end game is Boots trains in Bel-Air. Maybe that's his end game. He goes Hollywood and he lives in Bel-Air, and that's the end game of the Boots saga.
I'm excited about all of your. You have the conspiracy theorist mind, because you love to do this where you try to put yourself into the fighter's mindset and you take it to a place I would never expect. But it's always something interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, imagine how cool that would be. He's running with, he's taking people to school, and then he just kind of adopts that he's going to Bel-Air, and he takes the group with him.
Maybe driving the school bus.
I don't know. School buses are dangerous. There was a rapper in the Bay Area that drove a school bus, and I think it crashed. It's like, it's not built for durability. It's built for just like 10 miles.
Well, they're also not. It's not something that's easy to drive.
Yeah, it's also it's like you have to be competent. They don't just hand out school bus licenses. I don't know what it like. I mean, I feel satisfied with this fight night. Like, I think that's like the big thing is like this felt like a satisfactory boxing night. Like this is probably our big fight of the summer. This or Abdullah Mason, and it's like when I look back on it, I'll be like, yeah, that was a good summer fight.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we get a little more in volume at least. I hope a couple things develop. I mean, I guess we're already almost into July, so it kind of what's on the schedule is on the schedule. But no, I agree. I thought this was a good fight night. I thought the main event, as in some ways as odd as it was entertaining. There was a little back and forth. Zayas took a lot more than I expected he might. I actually liked that moment after the first round. You and I've talked about it enough now, but he got hit on that kind of awkward punch. And it was not even an awkward punch. It was sort of, he took it at an awkward angle and he went down and had that look on his face like, all right, what are we going to do here? And seemed to make the conscious choice that it was like, all right, well, I'm a fighter. I got to get up and fight. And he did. And looked good at times and took a lot more punishment. That was something, I think the thing that was most interesting to me about this fight was that we learned a lot. I mean, we learned Zayas is tougher maybe than anybody might have guessed. He's got a better chin than most realize. We also know he's got a lot of work ahead of him. you talked about his maturity and his kind of his approach. There are some things he's going to have to adjust, and some of it's the opponent, obviously, but the other thing is Ennis, like, there was a lot to like there, but as you said, also as we were watching, um, if Virgil Ortiz is the guy standing across from him instead of Xander Zayas, that's a very different fight.
Or Sebastian Fundora, the redheaded stepchild of this division. Like, people never bring him up, but it's like, to me, what I think the best fights, let me go poetic on you, is the best fights answer questions and leave us fewer questions from the good fights. And I think this one left us with some answers, but also some questions moving forward, which kind of is compelling in this division. Like, how will Xander move on from this? Is this a point where, like, he learns some things and he grows and he develops as a fighter? Or is there always going to be scar tissue from this fight where, he has that damage and, he tries to reinvent himself, but he goes back to the thing. And then with Ennis, it's like phenomenal fighter. But then there's some things that he's getting away with that I don't think you can get away with at 32. As you get older, it's like I've never seen someone kind of get away with this stuff. And it almost felt like tonight was one of the first nights that he didn't really get away with some of that stuff at points. And it's like, I'm starting to wonder, like, Boots, phenomenal fighter, tough fighter, generational fighter. But how does that translate to the very best guys? Not to say Zayas isn't the very best guys, but how does that translate to the Terrence Crawfords or whoever the best guy, Virgil's, Fundora's? I don't know the answer to that. And that's something that I thought would be more definitive after this fight.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see him kind of plant his flag and win. I don't want to say he didn't win decisively, but it didn't feel like he imposed his will on this fight. It felt like it became an inevitability at some point. And that, I don't know, maybe that's splitting hairs. It's getting a little too deep into, it's like, look, he beat his ass. Like, let's be honest. Like, he went in there and did what he was supposed to do. But I come away feeling a little bit emptier about Boots than I would have liked to moving forward. Gold Print Sports and Media. I know we're just dealing with what we're dealing with, but I would love to know Gold Print Sports and Media's name, because it'd be less of a mouthful. But he says,
a little bit more cordial.
A little friendlier. I'm worried about Boots' preparation against someone he actually sees as a threat. I don't think he took Xander as serious as he should have. That may be fair. What do you think of that, Lukey?
I don't think so. I think he thought he was going to really beat up Xander, and I think that he gave this everything, because I think that he thought this was going to be his crowning moment, and I think that maybe he thought that Xander was more hurt than he was in the third round, and that's what led to that round being so awesome, was that he maybe underestimated the heart, the power, and the courage of Xander, and he almost got himself into an uncomfortable spot, because that's really the first time I've ever seen Boots go like, oh God, I don't like where I'm at. And he had to take some rounds off.
It did seem to be visible on his face, right?
And it felt like he had to rebuild from that moment. Like he got out of that round, he kind of chilled in the fourth, and then he rebuilt into the fifth. But I think that that's like my fear with Boots, if we're going to go deep spiritual, is I think that it's never going to be a training issue. I think he works really hard. I think sometimes he thinks he's safer in the ring because he can get away with things other people can. And I think he has a habit of, he believes the punches aren't coming as hard anymore. And he believes he can roll with them. And he's done it for so long that when he feels the steam coming off the punches, he starts stepping to the fighters to look for those exciting knockouts, because I think he's dropped most of his opponents. He's a sensational action offensive fighter. And I think tonight was one of the first times where, like, he didn't judge it right. and I think that that can't be understated. That's just my feel.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with all that. Devontae Jennings, Gold Print Sports and Media. Devontae Jennings. Thank you for letting us know, Devontae. So we're trying to hang on for Eric to join us to see if see what his thoughts were. He's always
The award-winning Eric.
the award-winning Eric Raskin. He's always got incisive thoughts about these things, and we'd like to hear from all our guys whenever we can. Guys and ladies, we heard a little bit from Lily earlier. We're hoping to have her at Barclays Center tonight with Ryan as well. Didn't work out, but in the meantime, Lukey, tell me, I want to hear your thoughts on, obviously everybody wants to see Boots fight Virgil Ortiz. Like, I think that's the easy call. But what do you think makes the most sense for him next step? What do you think we'll see?
Okay. Who could he fight? Let's pull up the rankings. That's what we got to do. We got to pull up the rankings. Let's see. Let's weigh our options, because Fandora and Virgil are like the two most exciting options. Looking through it. Okay, I got a fight for you. I don't know if it works entirely, but the winner of Brandon Adams versus Bekram Martazaliev, I believe they'd be fighting for some form of a title eliminator or a belt. I also think another fight people probably aren't thinking about is Josh Kelly, I believe, is signed with Matchroom. Eddie Hearn promotes Zayas-Ennis. That's a 3-belt unification. That would be 1 belt away from Undisputed. If you look at Undisputed, that also kind of sets up a really good fight between Fandora and Virgil Ortiz, because they could unify the WBC in the process, which could lead to a super fight. So I think that if I was a Machiavellian boxing person, I would go Boots versus Josh Kelly, maybe in the UK, and then do Virgil versus Fandora at the end of the year, and then the winner of those two would fight in like March, April.
I like that. And Boots expanding his fan footprint. You know, if he goes to the UK and puts on a show, and yes, he's moving towards unification. Assuming it'll be interesting to see, because as you said, like, he kind of is who he is. Is he? I'm thinking in my head. I'm thinking, you know, assuming he learns his lesson. If he fights Fandora and he's the same fighter he was tonight. How do you see that playing out?
It's a 50-50 fight. Look, this is the way I look at Boots. He's incredibly talented, but if he fights this way against the wrong guy, it's just going to come down to who has the better chin. Because he's so offensive, there's just going to be moments of, like, it's just going to who takes a better punch, because he's vulnerable at times. And tonight, he was able to dish out more damage and absorb damage that came back. But the reason you don't tell every 10 or 15-year-old that comes into a gym to play 50-50 boxing is it wears you out and it's risky. And I think that when he goes in with Fandora or Virgil Ortiz, nobody knows what's going to happen. And I think that the intrigue with this fight was Boots sometimes gets a little wild and he's vulnerable. And even in a fight where he has physical advantages and experience advantages, people fully didn't know what to expect because he's very unproven.
Yeah. So what does Zayas do from here? What's his? Again, I kind of ask you the same question. What's his best move forward, and then what do we envision most likely will happen? Maybe they're the same thing.
So for me, I think that, like, the obvious thing, you're hearing news of people saying, okay, move to middleweight. Well, the WBO, I think, is the path, right? And there's Denzel Bentley, an interim champion. We're waiting on Janabek to see what happens. But maybe he takes a WBO fight that gets him ranked, or maybe he goes right into a fight with Denzel Bentley. But I think that's a type of fight where he could jump into a WBO eliminator fight. I think there's a lot of fights out there. It just depends on what he wants. I think that, a guy like Yuri Cedeno who fought on the undercard, depending on his mentality coming off the Jatai Tucker, you could match up two guys from the same card coming off of losses. You could put Yoeni Hernandez, who's a Cuban one-speed fighter that people are really excited about. You could put him in with a fight. Amari Jones is a guy you could put in a fight. But I think they're going to target the WBO path. I don't get the sense that Janibek's probably coming back. And a WBO middleweight title fight between Denzel Bentley and Xander Zayas, I think, is a fight that we probably see at some point.
All fair. All fair. Who, oh, hold on. What have we here? There he is, Eric Raskin. You're right on time, too.
Gentlemen,
I was running out of questions to ask Lukey.
You guys can hear me? I'm coming through all right?
Can hear you great. Looking good.
Awesome.
Sounding good.
This is the latest that I've been awake in about 25 years, just for you guys.
I was wondering when you said that you could join us afterwards, I was like, you gonna make it, man? Come on.
Yeah, well, I cheated a little bit. I was popping dark chocolate covered espresso beans from the middle of the card on. But I have to say also it didn't hurt that the main event was pretty damn exciting. Got the blood flowing a little bit. Kept me awake through the fight and through the hour-long drive home. So
Okay. Well, glad you made it home. We won't keep you up too late, but Lukey and I have been kind of chopping it up for a while now. So let's start with the main event. Let's hear just kind of your impressions of Zayas-Ennis.
It was a slightly more entertaining fight than I think I was expecting. I think that's one of the things in my preview that I maybe sold it a little bit short was commenting that Boots hasn't proven a consistently thrilling fighter. He hasn't had anything remotely close to a fight of the year type of fight prior to this. Not that this is going to be in the fight of the year conversation, but I think I heard Ryan earlier saying round 3, at least round of the year consideration. I think I would agree with that. And so just from an entertainment standpoint, it exceeded my expectations, even if it ultimately turned a bit one-sided the last couple of rounds. I thought Zayas's game plan was questionable from the very start. I especially once he got knocked down in the first round, I thought, all right, buy some time, use your legs, use your jab, use the whole ring, and he never did. He just stood there fighting, and it appeared briefly like that was paying off for him. But I thought what was really interesting to me was seeing Boots in a little bit of duress. I don't think he was ever, hurt. I'm not sure I'd say he was hurt, but he was at least buzzed in the third round. And he did this thing that I recall Floyd Mayweather doing as well when Shane Mosley hurt him, the worst I've ever seen Floyd hurt. That Floyd got really hurt by Shane Mosley, almost went down. And once he kind of shook it off a little bit, he started walking Shane down. It was one of the few times that Mosley was really aggressive in his entire career. And that's what Boots started doing. And it didn't necessarily seem smart, but I think he was that confident in himself that, okay, got a little buzzed. I'm going to step forward and just come right at this guy. And I think maybe there was some calculation from Boots there as well that, okay, I've tasted his punch a little bit. It didn't bother me that much. I can take it. I want to exchange and I want to knock this guy out. So there was a real confidence on display from Boots that really stood out to me. I think very good fight, outstanding performance by Zayas-Ennis. A bit of a shame that it was on pay-per-view and probably not a large enough audience got to see him make what otherwise could have been a leap towards superstardom. It's still a step in the right direction.
You'd mentioned that in your column as being a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it played out that way. That it had a 10 times more people watched Boots do this, they'd be that much more excited for whatever's coming next for him. But hopefully DAZN at least will make it. I don't know what they usually do with their pay-per-views, whether like a week later they just become part of the regular DAZN package. If not, they should. Um, I think at least give people the chance to watch it after the fact. But yeah, and maybe everyone went maybe a little overboard with the praise for Zayas. That like that was a bit of a promotion going on there. But we two new superstars were born tonight or whatever Mannix and Eddie Hearn and other folks were saying in the ring immediately afterwards. I thought Zayas showed toughness, bravery, showed he's not completely out of his depth at this level. It was a fine night for him in certain ways, but he also took a loss, got knocked out in what was ultimately, other than one round, a fairly one-sided fight. So I wouldn't go too overboard with it was a win for both men. It wasn't, but
Yeah,
yeah,
there's a difference between surviving and battling on even terms.
yeah, and he ultimately didn't even survive. He got through, got just past the halfway mark of the fight, which thank goodness he did, because one of the gentlemen on this call had a wager on Boots by KO in round 7 through 12, and in round 5 it wasn't looking good for me. Looked like it was going to end a little too early, but Zayas toughed it out. So I appreciate that. But yeah, all in all, I think the fight delivered above my expectations, and I think it was exactly what Boots needed right now to move on to something even bigger, hopefully in the near future. That being either Ortiz or Fundora. Those are, to me, the two fights I really want to see him in.
Yeah, I think we all agreed. I don't know how much of the show you saw leading up to this, but I think we all felt like it delivered maybe a little bit higher than expectation, at the very least on expectations, which is nice, because too often boxing comes in short. Real quickly, I'm just going to get to Kay Murphy here. Says it reminded me of when Triple G was the boogeyman, but Kell Brook brought the fight to him and tried to fight fire with fire. The plan was working until it didn't. That sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah. Although I guess in that the big difference in that fight to this one, although I think there's some interesting parallels there, but that was Kell Brook as the smaller guy taking a big leap up against the much bigger Golovkin, bigger and better, and thus Kell Brook never really had a chance. Did about the best he could there. In this case, Zayas was the bigger guy, but my stance on that is that this size thing tends to be overrated, and in this case, we saw that was about his only advantage, was that he was bigger, but Boots had all the other advantages over him, and still got the stoppage despite being maybe giving away, I don't know, 15 functional pounds or so in the ring on fight night. Possibly it ultimately didn't matter when he got his shots in clean and crisp. He got the knockout. Oop. Did I freeze up? Did you guys freeze up? Oh, right. No, you hear me? Did I lose you?
Yes, I froze up for a minute. I don't know if it was all of us.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Eric?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, good. We had a little glitchy there for a second. Yes, I'm. I think Lukey's of the same mind, but I think sometimes that gets a little overblown. We went how many years in boxing where we had many fewer weight divisions and guys crossing multiple weight divisions then, and excelling in many cases, or at least in enough cases to where you're not going to quibble over a few pounds, especially on fight night. Like you've done what you needed to do to get there on the scales, and at that point, it's a little bit more about can you fight or can't you fight.
Right.
Let's see. I'm still a little bit surprised. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be, but So Kay Murphy says, I just got home from the Barclays. Amazing atmosphere, heavy PR crowd, but they were all just as confused with his game plan. Ryan had mentioned this as well. He brought up Miguel Cotto, brought up Felix Trinidad. It'd be really interesting if there really is that kind of a following for somebody like Zayas, and we'll know more after tonight. Do they stick around?
Right.
But to have another Puerto Rican star in the sport would not hurt in the least bit. Particularly, somebody who's willing to go fight in New York and has that potential crossover appeal. He's young, good-looking guy, pretty eloquent, bilingual. There's a lot to work with there, but he's gonna have to bounce back from this one. Gold Print Sport or Devontae. Was it Devontae? Am I getting your name right? I'm sorry, Gold Print Sports and Media. What did he say? Worth a DAZN subscription. Referring back to what we were saying earlier about how it paid off. Oh my goodness, this is an interesting one. We all know Emily Pendelakis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Emily's great. All big fans. She brought this up to me the other day, so it's really funny that this was brought up. So you think grown man strength really plays a part in this too? And so I was talking a little bit to Emily about this. If that's a thing, I've heard like country strong, dad strong, dad muscles, whatever. Even grown man, like I've heard the grown man thing, but just like man strength. She asked me to start asking around a little bit. She's like, is that a thing? Because I hear it a lot with some of these boxers, man strength. And I think it came up with Ben Rodriguez recently. I don't know. Lukey, you and Eric, but I want to hear from both of you. What do you think as far as that goes? Like Zayas is 23. I don't know. Is that a thing?
You want to answer
Okay,
first?
I'll start that.
You seem like
I
an
don't
expert
know,
in man
bro. If you can
strength.
fight, you can fight. Sometimes, look, normally when you look at somebody's body, you can kind of tell if they don't look like maybe they're too young or whatever. But no, I don't think anyone looks at Xander and goes, "Man, that guy's not in shape," and whatever. If anything, what he brings to the table is he's physically strong. He's in shape. He can box a bit, but I think the physical aspect is one of the big things he does really well. So I could see instances of it, but I think it's more just a stereotype that people kind of throw out to sell fights from time to time. They'll be like, "Oh, that guy's got old man strength." Because when Mike Tyson was 21 or whatever, he was knocking guys out and stuff. So I think it's just an example that appears at times, but people it's like a stereotype.
Yeah, I think the Tyson example is a perfect one. If he didn't have full on strength at 21, then I don't know what strength is. Because
he's at
that
14
was
probably.
right. That's true. He was right. People said that when he was like 14, that they couldn't believe that was his age. He looked like he was 21 or so. But I would say probably man strength is a bit of a myth, but it is true that your body fills out a little more as you keep cross and then fills out beyond the point you want it to fill out as you continue crossing different benchmarks. But
hey,
so
feeling a little personally attacked right now.
No, not you at all, Jason. But Lukey, maybe. I don't know. You're both just heads right now, so I can't make any judgments. But I think So yeah, you fill out, you thicken up in certain ways, but I don't think it's so much about developing strength as it is that Boots has a lot of physical advantages, regardless of age, size, strength, any of that stuff. He's just so much faster and so much more gifted. But I think I'd say that there were certain advantages to his age in terms of just he's been doing this as a pro longer, and he's had more fights around this level. He's got the experience, and this was a huge step up for Zayas. So I think his 23ness showed a little bit in the game plan that we've criticized. And I did hear earlier, when you guys were first talking about it, that talking about the first knockdown, and Zayas having to decide, oh boy, do I want to keep going with this? Whatever. He was in a situation he'd never been in before. So there was some of that going on, separating them because of their ages and experience levels. But no, I don't think man strength was one of the differentiators in this fight.
Yeah, and so Fan mentions Fan. You got to get something. Fan, you got to come up with something better than got to deliver on your name a little bit.
It's mysterious.
Yeah, well, okay. So says Xander fought 20 fights sticking and moving. He can't just change his style in one camp and expect to out Boots at his own game. Very good point. I think, again, going back to your point, Eric, 23 years old, probably has less to do with your man strength, has less to do with anything other than your approach. I mean, at least what we saw tonight. Kay Murphy says, the few good things coming out of this, Xander is going to get better. Well, I hope, because he had zero head movement tonight. Boots will get credit for earning those belts. Xander being too young never made sense as a unified title holder. 154 is still wide open, even if Boots had the most belts. And I think that's probably the most interesting thing. Lukey and I talked a little bit about it earlier. This fight answered some questions, but it also, we're left wondering for both guys, what happens next. Not what happens next. Will they become different fighters? Will they learn from tonight? How will tonight's outcome affect each of them in terms of, will we see Boots try to incorporate anything new in response to the pushback that he got from Zayas tonight? And Zayas, we know, needs to, at the very least, come in with a better game plan and be more disciplined with it. But there may be technical things, the head movement, other things that he needs to sort of bring into his repertoire. So we're not going to know until their next fights what comes of that. But as Lukey said earlier, we learned something from this fight, and it also asked more questions, which is kind of what you want, what makes for compelling fights. Eric, anything else from the card that you saw that stands out to you that you want to mention before we go?
I'll just do I'll play into the stereotype of who I am, bitching about fights starting too late. The card was moving.
By the way, you created for yourself.
Yes, I've perpetuated this stereotype. This is a stereotype was probably the wrong word. My gimmick, my shtick, my defining characteristic. But I legitimately do have undiagnosed narcolepsy on some level. There's no question about it. But yeah, I can like fall asleep if I'm sitting down and in a dark room with a TV on. It can be any hour of the day. I'm there,
Okay.
and I'll feel like I'm fine, and then all of a sudden my eyes are closed.
Well, this is kind of a special moment for us. I mean, we're going on. It's almost 2 a.m. where you're at. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, the fight kind of powered me through. A lot of dark chocolate covered espresso beans as my snack of choice tonight. But so we got the benefit of a couple of early knockouts on the show. A KO2 followed by a KO4. And then a 40-minute break between the end of the co-feature and the start of the main event. And it's just unnecessary. It's one thing for the main event to start around 11:30 when the undercard fights go the distance. But they had a perfectly wide open opportunity here to just, 10, 15 minutes earlier. Tap dance for half an hour between fights instead of 40 minutes. So I just had to bitch a little bit about that. It sucks that boxing decides the idea is to put the fights on after 11 anyway, and I get that we have to think of the West Coast audience to some extent, but there's just no need to start pushing it into 11:30 or 12 o'clock when your undercard fights are ending early and you have a chance not to. So I'll go out with that as my final rant. But again, the main event was fun enough that it, uh, you know, resurrected whatever shortcomings there may have been on the undercard or delays waiting for the main event to start.
All right. Well, Eric, we appreciate you joining us. We appreciate your time. Go get your rest, and we'll see your column at the Good Fight on Tuesday, I believe.
I believe that's the plan, and I'll throw in another plug then that Ring Theory 2.0 episode 2 will come the following week. So
yeah. All right, we had quite a few people react to the first one, so I'm sure there's plenty of looking forward to it. So, all right, we'll catch up with you again soon. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great night. Lukey, before we check out, any final thoughts?
Big one. Boots-Ennis press conference. I stay on the grind, right? So I'm watching these clips without the video. He gets there, designer shirt. I think it's a Boots-Ennis one. I'm trying to get you the play-by-play.
Is this going where I think it's going?
No backpack. Then an object is grabbed near him, picked up. It's the backpack. And then he does the interview holding the backpack. So the backpack is in full frame. So is this becoming a gimmick? Do you think it's like a self-aware thing? Are we willing the Boots? Do we need like an X or an IG account that's Boots-Ennis' backpack? Like, do we need to get this to another level?
There's no reason not to at this point. I mean, you're kind of willing it into existence.
Kind of am speaking it, but it's like, honestly, it's one of the more compelling elements of the Boots story is the backpack. Like, the backpack was right there with him on his biggest night. He was hugging the backpack. So I don't know what it is. I'm hoping he's leaning into it, but there's like a visual. Oh, here. I'm going to screenshot this and send it to you via WhatsApp. And you need to see this because this is how we need to. This is it's an amazing podcasting. Okay. But
Anthony
is
asking us to interview the backpack.
I mean, I want to go to Philly and I don't care about the career or anything. We want to maybe take me on a backpack shopping tour.
If we all right, we're gonna make this we're gonna put this out there right now. If we can get 100 new paying subscribers tonight, we're gonna send Lukey out to Philadelphia to interview Boots-Ennis' backpack.
To interview the backpack and like one person affiliated with him, like loosely. I don't want any of the key people. We want like a guy, like a second string guy.
We want his Taylor. We want the Louis Vuitton.
But did you see the image? Did you check
No,
WhatsApp?
I didn't see it yet.
Check it. You got to see this one. This is like legendary.
We're gonna have to do this offline because I'm an old man and my bladder is screaming at me. We've been on for almost well over an hour and a half. So I do want to jump on one quick thing before we go. We were asked before we head out prediction for the Mason fight. Let's hear it, Loki. What do you think?
Shoot, I haven't done the analysis on it, but my immediate thought is that it's a really, really hard fight for a replacement opponent for Abdullah Mason, because I know that, and this is kind of burying, I'm doing the Ryan thing, right, where I'm telling people a little bit of my article that we're putting behind a paywall, but Albert Bell has the same reach as Artur Beterbiev and Ezra Charles.
Wow.
And he fights at lightweight. So you go from fighting a goofy Joe Cordina, talented, but it's like, you have some physical advantages, to fighting Albert Bell, who has the reach of a light heavyweight, fighting at lightweight, who is preparing for the fight of his life against Andy Cruz, who's been waiting 7 years for a title shot and feels like the whole industry is against him, has an underdog spirit. And then you have Abdullah Mason, a young up-and-comer, propelling to stardom on a national holiday in America, doing his first ever hometown fight. I think it's a lot of pressure, and I think what we're going to see is an amazing action fight, as ironic as that is. I think we're going to see probably the fight of the summer, because I think that it's the perfect mixture of a great young champion who's got that fight to fight back, but you got the real underdog who's coming in to change his life, and I think it's going to be a special fight.
Yeah, I'll just throw my 2 cents in. I think it's going to be Mason, but I think it's going to be tooth and nail. I think it's going to be a decision. I think Bell's going to give him much more of a fight than anybody would expect.
I'm going with a draw.
Let's just call it a draw right now.
I'm calling it a draw. Whenever I don't want to pick, I just say draw.
But I do. A fight of the summer would be good. Regardless of the outcome, fight of the summer would be just fine. Before we go, thank you everyone for joining us. We had a good time. This was not shorter as I had kind of expected to, but we dragged it out a little bit. We had a few more guests. We had waited on the line for Eric, so hopefully it was all worth it. Hopefully you all enjoyed hanging with us, and we're going to keep doing this. We had a good time, and we just want to kind of chop it up, hear from our fans or from our subscribers, our readers,
our listeners, our
listeners.
peeps.
That's right. We will most likely catch you next week for Mason Bell, but if not, very soon in the future. And thanks again. This was the Good Fights TGF post-fight show, and we will catch you again at the fights. Thanks.